We started last week with the second part of Mishna bit. Go. Shalom uvracha from Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. We continue, Be'ezrat Hashem, our joint study of the ethics of the fathers of Pirkei Avot. We began last session the second chapter of the second Mishna, and I said that we would not be able to complete it in one reading. It will take us 2 or 3 sessions. Therefore, this is the second part of Perek Bet, Mishnah Bet, Chapter 2, Mishnah 2, Part 2. We are studying the teachings of Rabban Gamliel. We spoke last week about which particular Rabban Gamliel we're referring to, Rabban Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. And he's dealing with the issue of Torah im derech eretz, joining Torah with some kind of occupation, according to some interpretations. Or as we read this evening, those following in Mishnah Bet, V'chol Torah she'ein imah milacha, sofa, excuse me, sofa betela v'goreret avon. All Torah study, which is not joined together with work, with some type of productive work, will not endure. It will cease in the end. And it will, God forbid, lead to sin. Goreret avon. The rabbis taught the importance of a skilled career, the importance of learning a trade, the importance of learning a profession. In Kiddushin, page 29a, the guiding teaching of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda expresses it in the following way. Kol she'eno milamed et beno umanut, milamedo listut. If a person does not teach their child some type of way of making a living, some type of profession, then God forbid they're teaching them thievery, they're teaching them robbery, they're teaching them dishonesty. How are they going to live? So the Gemara said, what do you mean? They didn't teach them listut? Listut sakadata. The rabbi says, he didn't teach his son to be dishonest. So the rabbi said, well, ki'ilu melamedo listut. It is the equivalent of teaching that child a life of dishonesty, God forbid. Because a person has to deal with the reality of trying their best, each one in his or her own way, to work for a living, to try to earn an honest livelihood. And it could be that Rabban Gamliel is emphasizing these values in Pirkei Avot. Those who dedicate themselves to full-time study of Torah are to be appreciated by the entire Jewish community. They're supposed to be supported by the Jewish community. But not everyone who says that they want to learn and study Torah full-time, not all of those people are really capable of doing so. They could say that I studied under the tutelage of Rav Avigdor Miller. I was very close to him at a certain point in my life. And I remember he shared a story with us. He said there was someone who was working, 9 to 5 job, this was in New York, 9 to 5 job, 5 days a week. And he came to Rabbi Miller, he feels that working is not really what a person should be doing in this world. A person should be studying Torah all the time, and therefore he wants to join the kollel. So Rabbi Miller says, oh wow, you want to join a kollel? I have a kollel. He says, okay, so I'll stop working. He said, no, first join my kollel. He says, I have a kollel here during the winter months. Shabbat begins very early at 4 o'clock in the we have 2.5 hour kollel after the Friday night meal. Join that kollel. And then he says, when Shabbat is over, 5 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock, we have 3 hours. Saturday night, we have a kollel here. Join the Saturday night kollel. And he says, Sunday, from 7:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, we have a kollel, and all day kollel. Rabbi Miller told us, well, he never joined those. He never joined those sessions. And Rav Miller's. I don't want to say anything, God forbid, negative about anyone. I don't want to put anyone down, God forbid. I'm not judging. I'm just repeating what Rav Miller told me. He said this man wasn't interested in a kollel. He was interested in not going to work. I mean, it'll go to kollel. I think we have to be. I think we have to be very much appreciative of those people who seriously study. Those people who I'm interested. Those people who seriously study. But we have to make sure that the people who are studying are really studying and really are capable of studying. You know that for their own good, somebody who's in a serious environment of a yeshiva, may they all be blessed. If they're not doing anything productive there, this can cause them inner turmoil for themselves. They don't feel productive. They don't feel satisfied with themselves. So therefore, he says, "Kol Torah she'eini ma melacha, sofa b'tela melacha." Various forms of work is very, very important as a source of income. But we also find, not only for income, not only for monetary considerations, we also find certain requirements of work, even for those who are independently wealthy. The surprising statement in rabbinic literature that even if a person doesn't, they can just sit home all day and just do nothing. They have enough money in the bank, they inherited money, or they won the sweepstakes, or I don't know. They have enough money to live at least 240 years in a comfortable lifestyle. So you would think, okay, this requirement of melacha does not apply. But it seems that kol Torah, kol with a kaf lamed, all Torah she'eini ma melacha, sofa b'tela. That maybe you need melacha. The rabbis teach in several places in rabbinic literature. Gedolah melacha. Melacha is great. It's not just I have to go to work, or I have to do something. It's healthy. Often if a person is not occupying himself or herself in a proper way, if they're just sitting by in an idle fashion, this may lead to various levels of sinfulness. The rabbis regarded a person who wastes time as a person who, God forbid, is in spiritual danger. Physical danger and spiritual danger. The Mishna in Masechet Ketubot, the Mishna tractate Ketubot 59b teaches, Habatala mivi'ah lidei shi'amum. In spoken Hebrew today, we use the word shi'amum as boredom. In Mishnaic Hebrew, in Talmudic Hebrew, shi'amum means a form of mental illness. Rashi writes, shi'amum shiga'on. A person, God forbid, can reach levels of a mental breakdown. They can go out of their minds because of batala. It is physically dangerous not to be occupied. Physically dangerous not to be involved in meaningful endeavors and meaningful work. It's also spiritually dangerous. In that very Mishnah in Masechet Ketubot we read, Habatala nun tet amud bet. Habatala mivi'ah lidei zima. Chas v'shalom. If a person is merely sitting by, a person who is not occupying himself or herself with meaningful activities, which the way we're reading this Mishnah, that's what we're talking about, melacha. People who are not occupying their time properly can be more easily lured into various levels of immorality. Zima. You would think Zima has nothing to do with it, right? No, you have to be busy. So if you're really seriously busy with Torah and you have a source of income, that's one thing. Rav Miller used to say, you know, if a man's wife is willing to go to work instead of him, you know, and she really is doing this with a full heart, that's one consideration, you know. But he says if she's not willing, there's an obligation. It's one of the Tanaim of the Ketubah that said at every wedding. Ana eflach bokir ve'zun v'farnes yathichi lichi kilchol Yehudim guvrayin. It's an obligation of a husband to support his wife. You know? Now, this is an ongoing discussion / debate in the community, and I'm not I'm not learned enough, nor am I capable of expressing an opinion. But I would like to just say that more than 40 years ago, I was privileged to study a great pamphlet, which I have here. Maybe you can get this on. Can you get this on the camera? This is a pamphlet that was written by Rabbi. You have it? This is a pamphlet that was written by Rabbi Shimon Schwab, and it's really, really beautiful. I don't know if it's available. It's probably out of print for more than 40 years already, but it's called These and Those. Elu ve'elu. It's a wonderful. If you haven't read this, it's really worthwhile. If you can't find it in the stores, which I don't think you can, it was put out by Feldheim, in 1967, I think. If you can't find it in the stores, which I think you will not be able to, 1966. So I don't. But so go to a library to read it because it's beautiful. And Rav Schwab, who was brilliant, Zichrono Livracha, he was one of the spiritual heads of the community of the followers of Rav Hirsch. Rav Hirsch is Kahal Yeshua in Washington Heights, and he writes the reason why I was impressed then. I reread it today, in honor of our study of Pirkei Avot. He tries to present both sides of the argument, and that's not the way that most people write. Most people either take a position, Torah derech eretz, you must. He calls it. He abbreviates it. T period, I period, D period, E period, or Torah derech eretz, or Torah derech eretz, or only Torah alone. And he goes back and forth between the two arguments. It's a beautiful way to write. It's not a popular way to write. There are those people who argue Torah only. So they'll put out a pamphlet telling you why you should only study Torah. They won't argue the position of those who say it's important to have careers. And those who were talking about careers, rarely did I write about why it's so important to just learn all the time. But if you want a really beautiful presentation, I think this is the best that I've ever read, at least, of both sides of the. And he was coming from the school of Rav Hirsch. He was coming from the Hirschian school. Rabbi Breuer writes in his introduction to this pamphlet, he says, and Rav Schwab, in his brilliance, was able to present both sides without compromising on the position of this community. Rav Yosef, you want to say something, please?
Yes, I enjoyed your poignant comments, and I basically agree with everything you said. I just wanted to add on the pshat of the words. In chapter 1, Mishna 10, we learned Ehovat HaMlacha. Mlacha is not just a job. It's more position. It's more a mission. In other words, you have to love not your 5 to 10, your 8 to 4 job, but rather it's to love what you're involved with. So here, I believe the Mishnah is building on something that you probably spoke about last week. Torah in Derech Eretz is Torah and the way of life, which includes work. But here it's saying even more. Don't just study Torah. Don't even have a job just to be Yotzei Zai. See this as something productive. Your job should have a potential, should have a mission. In other words, people should feel that they're contributing. In other words, because if you're not really contributing, if you don't really get involved, if it's melacha, Shane, if it's Torah that doesn't have a mission, you're just studying because you're in the kollel or everyone is doing that. At the end, you will feel idle. You will get involved in other things. You will be straight away. So I agree with you, but I'm even taking it on a larger plate and saying even Torah has to have a mission. It's not just and of course the malacha. And I think it ties in very well with that Mishnah of Ehovat HaMlacha. Malacha, of course, coming from Malach, as a person who's a shaliach, who has a task. So let's say if we can take when the Lubavitcher Rebbe appointed shlichim, he didn't just say do this or that. He gave them a mission in life. Every Jew has to be a shaliach, has to have a mission, has to have a
their particular malacha. Thank you. I'd just like to conclude. We didn't finish the Mishnah yet. I'm sorry, it's taking us 3 weeks. It's taking us 3 sessions. You want to say something? It's taking 3 sessions to learn one Mishnah. I'm sorry, but I want to conclude with the comment of the famed author of the Chafetz Chaim. Now, I think he said it half seriously or half jokingly, but I'm not sure. I mean, Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen, the commonly known as the Chafetz Chaim, he once said, if our Mishnah teaches how dangerous it is Kol Torah. Kol Torah. She'ein ima. Melacha. Sofa b'telah. Wow, it's dangerous to just be involved in Torah without work. He says, could you imagine how much more dangerous it is to be involved in work without Torah? If Torah without melacha is dangerous, he says, alachat kama v'chama, melachat, kol melacha she'ein ima Torah. So I hope, if a person only pursues work without Torah study, how much more dangerous it is. May we all learn proper levels. That great fusion between Torah and melacha in proper accord. Thank you so much for listening. Shalom Aleichem.